say the absolute least, Promising Young Woman has a bold, audacious, in-your-face premise. So much so that writer-director Emerald Fennell reportedly sold the movie after just pitching the cold open. The cold open in question involves three guys at a bar who notice a girl sitting alone, so drunk she can barely hold her head up. One of the guys, notably played by former teen heartthrob Adam Brody, decides to call her an Uber to take her home, but then decides on the way to take her back to his place. As he begins to kiss and undress this incapacitated woman, she slurs, "What are you doing?" over and over again, until finally she sits up, reveals herself to actually be stone sober, and stops him in his tracks. According to producer Josie McNamara, Emerald Fennell pitched that cold open, and they all said, whatever the rest of it is, we want to do it. Turns out the rest that Josie McNamara was buying sight unseen is similarly bold, audacious, and in your face, and similarly depressing and hard to watch, but also perversely fun and even cathartic. Carey Mulligan plays Cassie, the aforementioned faux incapacitated woman. Cassie is a med school dropout who works at a coffee shop, lives with her parents, and spends her evenings doing exactly what we see her doing in the cold open over and over again. She's offered a better job by her boss, Gail, played by Laverne Cox, but she doesn't want a better job. She doesn't want to move out of her parents' house. All she really wants to do is keep doing what she's doing with her evenings. This arrested development is Cassie's way of coping with what happened to her best friend, Nina. Nina was raped by a fellow med student, was disbelieved by school officials and the larger community, and took her own life before the events of the movie. So now, Cassie puts herself in the trenches in a one-woman war against rape culture, one would-be date rapist at a time. And she has no shortage of marks. That is, until she's asked out by a former med school classmate named Ryan, played by Bo Burnham. And Ryan seems like a nice guy. Not a nice guy like most of her marks claim to be.
I am a nice guy. Are you?
But like an actual nice guy. But when Ryan starts catching Cassie up on old med school classmates, including the fact that Nina's rapist is about to get married, Cassie devises a larger, multifaceted, more targeted revenge scheme than what she'd previously been doing every night. That pretty much takes you into Act 2, and the bulk of the movie is both Cassie and Ryan's blossoming relationship, but also Cassie's larger revenge scheme, where she in one way or another attempts to punish and or hold accountable the various individuals she believes specifically wronged Nina. I find both the concept and execution of her revenge scheme to be really clever, for the most part. In practice, she's essentially just honeypotting these people, where she puts on a nice face until they let their guard down, and then she turns the tables on them. Again, not unlike her nightly routine, except now it's in the light of day and more targeted to the individual. And these scenes are particularly engaging because we're not privy to any of Cassie's plans, so we slowly realize her game as the person she's punishing realizes they're being played. I think in general it's always pretty satisfying when a character thinks they have some amount of power over another character, but then it's revealed that the other character actually has the upper hand and the power dynamics of the scene shifts. I don't know, I kind of like that stuff. And that's how these scenes go. Cassie reveals, oh, by the way, I'm holding all the cards, and you didn't even realize we were playing poker. So while that execution is great, and I think that these scenes are emotionally satisfying because of that execution, I also think they're intellectually satisfying because how the movie positions these individuals into Cassie's crosshairs. She's targeting these individuals for the role they played in Nina's demise, but they each played a pretty distinct role, and the movie very cleverly uses each one as a stand-in for the various all-too-common attitudes and excuses that abide and perpetuate sexual violence. Alison Brie's character, Madison, another former med school classmate, she's a stand-in for the she shouldn't have been so drunk crowd. And Connie Britton, who plays the med school dean, she's the stand-in for the think about this young man's future attitude. At times this might be a little on the nose, but I would argue it's only on the nose because of how common these attitudes and refrains are. And the movie makes these scenes intellectually satisfying because of how Cassie turns the tables on these people and shows them how painfully unempathetic these all-too-common attitudes and excuses can really be when employed in practice instead of in the abstract. Cassie's punishment is tailored to each individual's crime. Cassie is usually 2 steps ahead of the audience and 4 steps ahead of whoever she happens to be teaching the lesson to at the moment, which, again, is very satisfying to watch. but I don't think it's spoiling anything to say that Cassie's scheme doesn't always go according to plan, and that throws Cassie off her game. Which is actually a welcome change for the audience. As fun it is to watch Cassie get the better of people, we can only see so many versions of that before it starts to get a little stale. But just before it gets stale, the movie throws a curveball at you to keep you on your toes. One thing I really love about the movie is that I was never ahead of it. Neither within a given scene, as I said, we aren't privy to Cassie's plans until she chooses to reveal them, but also not in a macro sense either. Every time I thought I had a sense of where the movie was headed, it throws that curveball. Cassie's thrown off her rhythm whenever her scheme goes off course, but she's also thrown off her rhythm by Ryan. Her life had become so consumed by her revenge that she didn't think she would ever have room in her life for anything else. But then she starts to catch feelings in such a way that maybe she wants to give up this life of revenge and just let herself be happy. I love Bo Burnham and have for years, and I'm not alone in that, which is why his casting is so brilliant. Possibly the most talked about aspect of this movie, which is saying something, is the genius casting of the male roles. I already mentioned Adam Brody, who every girl in my middle school class had a crush on because of the OC, but also Sam Richardson, beloved actor from Veep, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, beloved actor from Superbad, Max Greenfield, beloved actor from New Girl, etc. Plus Eugene Krabs. Basically, Emerald Fennell and casting directors Mary Vernew and Lindsey Graham, not that one, are using our existing relationships with these actors and the characters they've played against us. We're inclined to trust these actors and believe they're quote-unquote nice guys because, it's McLovin. To quote Carrie Whitmer writing in The Ringer, what all these actors have in common is their wholesome roots. Their previous roles make you feel at ease in their presence, even though in Promising Young Woman, you know that they're bad or that they're about to do something bad. Their performances in the film, which emulate their previous roles but with a sinister twist, perfectly capture the film's message that anyone could be a predator and anyone could be complicit. Even Richard Splett.
Pete Doyle's a lame duck. You know what you do with lame animals?
Care for them.
You shoot them dead.
Oh, no, yeah, I got you. Kinder in the long run, actually.
My larger point about the casting is that even though this movie does have this high-concept, attention-grabbing premise, so much so that it was sold on premise alone, it's the little details and flourishes in service of that premise that really make the movie work for me. I feel like I'm constantly citing Priscilla Page on this channel, but film critic Priscilla Page posted these when the movie came out. How the cinematography puts Cassie in the same frame as religious iconography, poses her like religious iconography, or otherwise gives her a halo or gives her wings. All of which highlights her righteousness, delusional or actual, and positions her as an avenging angel. Then there's the little details in the set design. I have no idea what this is. I don't know if it's 80s or 60s or just a marble and ceramic Victorian fever dream, but it certainly doesn't feel like 2020. The decor in Cassie's house, like Cassie herself, feels like it's stuck in the past, lost in another time, unable to move on. I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface, but those are just a few examples of the smaller, easy to miss details. But there are also larger, harder to miss details that I really enjoy. The movie is extremely stylish, with its bright neon colors, its needle drops, its use of slow motion, its use of close-ups, but you don't need me to point that shit out to you. You can tell from the first 10 seconds of the trailer that this movie's stylish. Promising Young Woman is a lot of things. It's a revenge thriller, it's a black comedy, it's a social drama, and there's even a half-hour stretch in the middle where it's low-key a pretty good romantic comedy. And it really worked for me, both intellectually and emotionally. As I've said, it made me think and it made me feel. It's taken some really big swings, which I always appreciate, and in its genre blending, it's trying to get you to feel a wide spectrum of emotions. And maybe the highest compliment I can pay the movie is that I definitely felt everything that the movie wanted me to feel. I was completely in Emerald Fennell's hands as I was watching. The movie's a roller coaster, and I was completely along for the ride. And I really enjoyed the ride.